Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week. I am Richard Ransom, here to bring you the real stories behind the big stories with the help of my special guests, who I will be introducing in a moment. First, a reminder that Local 24 This Week is now twice as nice because we come to you Sundays not just at 9 a.m. but also again at 10:35 p.m. So two opportunities for you to get caught up on the week's headlines. Also, because politics is a big part of this show, we wanted to remind you of a live debate that we will be bringing you this Tuesday at 7 p.m. featuring all three Republican candidates seeking to be their party's nominee in the Mississippi's governor's race. That GOP primary debate live from Jackson this Tuesday at 7 p.m. here on Local 24. Now, let's get to our topics for this week. Change of heart. It appears some sentiments are shifting in Nashville about how the state should honor Nathan Bedford Forrest. There's a special day set aside to honor the Confederate general and slave trader. Now the governor says he's not sure he wants to sign that proclamation for every year. Also, he and the lieutenant governor say they're open to relocating a bust of Forrest in the state capitol. ASD failure. A new report says Tennessee's Achievement School District, created for fixing failing schools, is failing. Is it time to try something else? And Tom Lee Park controversy. Former Memphis Mayor Willie Harrington fires his opening salvo of the campaign by taking on the hot-button issue of redesigning the city's best-known park downtown. He says, leave it to the voters. I'll see what my roundtable thinks in just a moment. But first, it's time for our one-on-one segment tonight. And today, we want to introduce Commissioner Tammy Sawyer, who is a candidate for mayor, and we appreciate you being on today to talk to us about the campaign. How's it going so far?
It is going great. I think we have great movement happening on the ground, and I'm really excited about the race.
Great. It's going to be here before you know it.
Yes.
It goes fast, doesn't it? So let's first of all let you have a chance to kind of introduce folks to you. We know you as an activist with the Take 'Em Down movement. We know you as a county commissioner. Talk to people about, you know, where you went to school, your education, career, that kind of thing. Tell us a little bit about you that we may not know.
Thank you for that opportunity. I graduated from St. Mary's in 2000, so a little bit ago. Coming up on my 20th anniversary of graduating from there. Graduated from University of Memphis. Then I headed on to D.C., where I went to law school for a few years at Howard Law, and ended up working for the United States Navy as a human capital analyst, working on diversity metrics. And that's really where my heart got into serving and into working on equality issues. And it was at a time when the government and the military were working for more equity and equality. And when I decided to come back home to Memphis, I brought that work home and started working with Shelby County Schools, worked with new teachers, and began to see a lot of the issues around educational access that were continuing to persist here in Memphis. And that's really what got my heart into being an activist, in addition to a lot of the work that was happening around the deaths of Trayvon Martin and Mike Brown. In addition to political work and grassroots activism, I'm an aunt of two lovely and crazy little girls, and my family is rooted here. Both my parents are here, and I'm just a girl who came back home because I love the city and I want to work for it.
Well, I had you on this week because I wanted to talk about your criminal justice platform, which you unveiled recently, and some highlights from it. You want a much better use of data than you say is currently the case. You'd like to have a new police director that would know how to use that data or implement it better. You'd like to see more transparency and community accountability. You would like the police department not to work with ICE, I guess become a sovereign, or excuse me, a sanctuary city if that's possible. Decriminalize some small crimes, people in possession of small amounts of marijuana and that kind of thing. You'd like to improve the reentry programs. Have I touched on the major points? Is there something I've left out?
I think that's about the major points, yes.
So why is this such a passionate issue for you?
So, as you know, Memphis is struggling with high amounts of poverty and has been for a long time. I believe that we have to look at criminal justice reform through the lens of that poverty and that lack of access. Currently, 70% of the city budget goes to public safety and policing, and 0% goes to education. That will change a bit next year with the pre-K funding, but even that is not funding for all children. So we continue to leave our youth behind. We're investing in them after after we refuse to invest in their education and in their opportunities. And so criminal justice reform is important for me because I believe that we have to get to the root cause of these issues. We need to talk more about intervention and prevention before we get into the conviction level. I don't believe we can lock our way up to crime, and I want to see crime go down in the city. I want Memphians to feel safe. I only think we'll get there when we start to get people what they deserve.
Now, the man you're challenging, Mayor Jim Strickland, is big on hiring more police officers, and he would like to see a contingency of 2,400 or so. Do you agree with that?
I do not agree with that at this time.
Would you like to see fewer officers?
I think where we are, we should see how this works for a while. I don't think we continue to hire more police officers. I've done research into what other police departments are doing. Denver is halting hiring of police, looking at how they can get more invested in the community, doing a talk to the community first approach. Jacksonville has said that they are going to hold their police hiring numbers as well. And many other police departments across the country are taking this approach because, again, you can only arrest after you commit the crime. And so knowing that a lot of our crime rate is about crimes committed between two people who know each other and about domestic violence, we need to get to the intervention and prevention, which doesn't mean just resources and putting more bodies on the street. It's in counselors in school. It's in making sure that kids have after-school opportunities. It's in all of these community issues that we've yet to really get to solving.
Now, we know from the last mayor's race that black and white voters alike really like the idea of Strickland and his campaign theme of hiring more officers, and claimed that there is statistics that show crime goes down the more officers you have on the streets.
I actually would challenge that statistics because what we're seeing is the statistics that have been rolled out end in 2016. Crime is actually higher right now than it has been in the past, especially violent crime. Homicides are up almost 50% than they were last year, and arrest of juveniles has increased 63%, just reported this week. And so more officers on the ground hasn't kept more kids from going to jail, hasn't kept more homicides from being committed. And so I do think that black and white voters alike want to know how we're going to solve this issue, and that 30 years of Dr. Harrington and Jim Strickland being in some form of office hasn't proven that we can reduce crime with increasing officers. So now it's time for us to get innovative and actually get real about what the issue is, and that's poverty and generational trauma.
We know about the tensions that exist between the community and police as a whole, and of course that was exacerbated most recently with the Brandon Weber shooting in Frazier. You took some heat for a tweet that you endorsed in which a group referred to it as murder. We know it was not murder. Would you take that back? Do you have any regret having posted that?
I don't regret what I've said about the Brandon Weber murder. I was very clear in my
You're still calling it murder.
I was very clear in my own words where I said that this was a community that was responding to the pain of seeing another one of their children dead on the street. And that community that I was standing with that night out there had no idea about any of the crimes that may have been committed. All they knew was that police officers had killed another child in their community, another young adult. And so what I would like us to get to and be able to debate, not whether or not it's murder or homicide or the legal definition, but the fact that if you kill me, you're going to go to court and you're going to go to jail and you're going to get your day in court and you're going to have to address that crime.
I won't go to court though if a police officer feels threatened by me.
But if the police officer kills someone, that police officer very rarely, and if you look at the statistics here in Memphis, very rarely do police officers ever have to go before a court to address the fact that they have shot someone. And so what people are responding to, murder or shooting someone or an officer-involved shooting, whatever you want to call it, what people are responding to, Richard, and what people were responding to in Frazier that night was the fact that police officers, and not all police officers are doing this, and I've never blamed an entire police force. What I've said is that the officers who are involved in these shootings should see their day in court just like you would if you shot me today.
Here's the thing, though. You're not mincing the use of terminology, whether it be homicide or murder or what have you. There is a big difference in that. And when folks use the word murder on a night when we don't know necessarily all the facts, do you think that that can inflame passions and make the reactions even more.
I don't think that
violent
anything that I did inflamed passions. What I think is inflaming passions is the fact that black people are continuously seeing the bodies of dead victims on the street, whatever we call it. You say I'm mincing words, but I continuously see us debating the words that are used around the killings instead of the fact that we don't ever figure out these people's lives. What we do automatically is find pictures of them, label them thugs, label them criminals, and decide that they deserve to die in that night. If I commit a crime, make sure I go to jail. Don't kill me.
If I, as a citizen, am wanted for a crime, and officers feel that their lives are threatened because of my actions, though, I forfeit my rights to be criminally prosecuted because I have endangered the life of an officer.
Just 2 weeks ago, the Sheriff's Department was able to arrest a white male who did the exact same thing that Brandon is accused of doing while under the influence of drugs. This man pounded his car into a police car multiple times right here in Shelby County and went to jail alive. The point that we continue to make is that there is a issue of colorism happening in these cases, where we see over and over videos of white people committing crimes and ending up getting into jail even when they're violent, versus the people, the Philando Castilles, the Alton Sterlings, Sandra.
There's a long history.
There's a long
very
history.
questionable use of police force.
We continually debate it, and so what I'm saying is, get the people to jail, and if it comes down to a point, and that's why I supported a bill to make sure that TBI comes in and does the investigation. Because I agree that if your life is in danger, yes, something might happen. But what I'm saying is that this happens over and over repeatedly with no real outcomes for a community that is afraid and that is tired of this happening.
Last time I'm going to ask you, was Brandon Weber murdered, and do you have any regret using that word in that case?
Brandon Weber was shot and killed, and that night no one knew any details.
So do you regret using that word?
I don't regret anything I've said.
Okay, very good. I want to ask you about your approach to business. I want to ask you about some of those other issues too, so I need to have you back on the show.
All right.
And we can talk about some other aspects too, but I know you're very passionate about criminal justice and criminal justice reform in particular, and I appreciate you coming on to talk about it today.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, Tammy. We'll be right back with my roundtable right after this.
Everyone who has ever lived has lived here. All of mankind's triumphs and failures. Every moment, every hometown, all here. We start our coverage on the ground and take it to the airwaves, so you always know what's happening in your own world and beyond. We are free TV and radio. We are breaking news. We are always there. We are broadcasters.
Honey, this Geek Speed internet is ridiculously fast.
We are seriously keeping up with the Joneses.
Keeping up with the Fords. Keeping up with the Garcias.
The Romeros.
Willands.
Right.
No one's gonna have internet like this.
Xfinity makes keeping up with the Joneses simple, easy, awesome. Check out Gig Speed Internet or any of our other amazing speed options. Get started now for as low as $20 a month for 12 months. Plus, see how you can save hundreds when you get internet and mobile together. Click, call, or visit a store today.
At VisionWorks, we guarantee you'll see great and look great.
Guarantee. We say that too.
You gotta use these because we don't mean it.
If you don't love your glasses, we'll make it right. Guaranteed. VisionWorks. See the difference.
It wasn't my fault, and I deserve to be paid for being seriously hurt.
That's right. It's time to lawyer up with Nahan, Saharovich, and Trotz. Call 683-7000.
The USA has lots of buried pipelines, so it's important to know the signs of a leak, like if you smell unusual odors or hear hissing, see bubbling earth or water, or dead or dying vegetation. Some signs are even harder to miss, like dirt being blown into the air, a frost ball in an open field, or a flame coming from the ground. If you see any of these signs, don't wait. Leave the area immediately and call 911 or your pipeline company.
Visit pipesafety.org. Brought to you by the Tennessee Gas Association.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
All right, with my roundtable now, we have Reverend Ken Whalen with New Olivet Worship Center and Local 24's political analyst and commentator Otis Sanford. Thanks, fellows, for being here today. I want to talk about the interview with Tammy in a minute, but first, let's talk about our top story. And I hate that we're talking about the past so much, but Nathan Bedford Forrest just is we keep talking about him. There seems to be reasons to keep talking about him. I had no idea the governor signed this proclamation and have done so for decades and decades until this year. It comes out that does happen annually, and now Governor Lee has found himself in the middle of it, trying to decide how he's going to handle doing it. He seems to be willing to consider something else. Same with the idea of moving the bust of Nathan Bedford Forrest, which now sits proudly between the House and Senate chambers. Is this just lip service on behalf of the governor, do you think, or are we serious about actually taking some kind of action? Otis, you first.
Well, let me say that I think that any criticism that Governor Lee got for signing the proclamation was misplaced because all those other governors had signed it. Bill Haslam signed it. Phil Bredesen signed it. You know, and all the way back to the late 1960s. So for the criticism that he may or may not have gotten, I think that was wrong. But I don't know if it's lip service at this point. I do believe that he has seen some, I don't know whether it's an epiphany or not, that with the way things are going on in this country right now, the racial climate, the animosity, I think maybe, because I think Governor Lee is a decent human being, a decent man, and maybe he is looking and seeing all of this and is thinking, well, maybe I've been too strident early on. He said don't remove the bust because it was whitewashing history. I think he's walking all of that back now, and I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt that it's more than just lip service at this point.
Your take?
Well, I think it's lip service right now, and I think he can prevent it from being lip service by taking a couple of steps. One is, and I don't agree, and you guys know this, I don't agree with removing the bus. I do think that he can convert it from lip service to something very meaningful by saying, okay, let's leave the bus there, but let's add something that tells the rest, as Paul Harvey used to say, that tells the rest of the story. Now, I'm going to be contacting him very soon to get him to support this new national holiday called National Harvest Festival Day, which is a day by Black Americans to try to just lift up Black people, to have their own holiday that says we celebrate everything that's Black in American history and try to build people up, build a community up. I think he might be amenable to supporting something like that. But right now, it's lip service. It doesn't have to remain lip service.
Well, let me take just a few seconds to get into why we disagree on this, because I don't see anything in the history of Nathan Bedford Forrest's life that gives him the honor of being in the House of the legislature where taxpayer money, my taxpayer money, is being used to clean him off, to sweep around the bust, to maintain it just like it was in the statute. That's why I vehemently disagree that he does not deserve that place of honor in a state-funded, tax-supported location. Put him in somewhere else where you can make those get those statements down like you want to get it down. Right, so
spend taxpayer dollars to move it, spend taxpayer dollars to house it, and don't spend taxpayer dollars to lift up the same taxpayers, teach the young people who are descendants of the slaves and the hundreds of defenseless Black people that he had murdered at Fort Pillow, spend that money and tell the story the way it is.
But
no,
I'm not saying
I don't think he should be removed. That's just my opinion.
Well,
I don't think the bus should be removed, but I think if it's going to stay, there needs to be something there to make his descendants as uncomfortable as ours are with it being.
I just thought it was important to understand why we disagree on this, Richard. So.
I love it. I just asked the question. You guys go for 4 minutes. I also want in this segment talk about ASD, because I know, Reverend, you feel passionately about this, and you do too, Otis. Big report conducted by Vanderbilt University looked at how much progress has been made in the 6 years we've had the Achievement School District, whose sole purpose was to go into the bottom 5% of schools, fix them, turn things around, and guess what? It's not working. Antonio Parkinson, the state representative from Memphis, has been very vocal about and critical of ASD as well. And he says it's time for us to get rid of the program. But doesn't the state need some way, some means to intervene if a school district is not addressing schools that are failing?
Oh, absolutely. Not only is it time to dismantle ASD, it's time to dismantle every other so-called the ISD zone or whatever all those other things are, to hide behind and rather than accept the responsibility for educating every child in the state of Tennessee and in Shelby County. ASD has the same boss that Shelby County Schools has. That's the governor of the state of Tennessee. It's the Department of Education's responsibility to educate all children. How dare you pay a separate superintendent to prepare children to read on grade level? Don't hide behind ASD or any other D. Create, improve the public school system as it is, and produce citizens who can read on grade level.
Well, the farce about the whole thing is basically all ASD did was hire a charter company to run a bunch of schools. And my understanding is the means to get rid of that charter company, if it's not doing the job, much more difficult than if Shelby County Schools was to hire a charter school to do the same thing. So it's basically ineffectual, yet all these charter companies are getting $10,500 per head that's enrolled in those schools. That's a lot of money.
It's absolutely a lot of money, and this is where Ken and I do agree. I do think it's time to get rid of ASD. I'm not going as far as to say get rid of the I zones, because there have been studies that show that the I zone is doing okay, and that's just like another optional program. But the ASD has failed, is failing. It needs to go, and for all the reasons that you stated, and then some.
And just a word about the charter schools. A lot of charter schools are doing great jobs of educating.
We all know there's some that are not.
That's another reason, I think, to remove all of that, to take away the curtain, let it all be one agency, the Tennessee Department of Education, and judge the Department of Education and its boss, the governor of the state of Tennessee, not just Governor Lee, whoever the governor is at that time, and hold them responsible for educating all of our children.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that.
ASD needs to go, you say, and we need to go too. We got to get a break in. When we come back, we're going to have our final segment right after this.
Are you struggling financially? What if you could earn money while helping to save lives? At Plasma Biological Services, you can earn up to $500 in your first month of donating plasma. Every donor is required to provide a valid ID along with proof of Social Security number. The process is similar to donating blood and is a very safe and comfortable procedure.
Help yourself while helping others.
Only you can provide life-saving medications for others. Please call us today at one of our locations to find out more on donating plasma.
The 2019 Cadillacs are made for summer and made to move. Get 0% APR for 72 months plus $1,000 on a 2019 Cadillac XT5 when you finance through GM Financial. Visit Bud Davis Cadillac today for this attractive offer.
The world is changing at a rate like never before. So, why isn't education? Raise your hand if you could use an education that's actually modern, actually affordable, and actually personal. If you're one of the 35 million Americans who hasn't finished your degree, well, Strayer's here to help. Welcome to the future of education.
Cancer won't wait. It won't wait for appointments to open up, test results to come back, or treatment plans to start. At Cancer Treatment Centers of America, we make time for cancer patients. Time to answer questions, relieve worries, and turn indecision into good decisions. Call or go online anytime to set up an appointment with our team of cancer experts. Cancer Treatment Centers of America. Appointments available now.
All right, the limited time we have left, I want to revisit the mayor's race right now. We had Tammy Sawyer on earlier defending her position on criminal justice, and we also had former mayor Willie Harrington making news this week. Big news conference saying, look, it's time for a referendum on this Tom Lee Park thing, which I thought was an interesting political move. Where do you think this race stands right now, Otis?
Well, I think obviously we do have the big three. We have Jim Strickland, Willie Harrington, and Tammy Sawyer. They are the three big ones in that mayor's race. Everybody else is running far behind. I do think that Tammy Sawyer made a compelling case today about why she is so passionate about criminal justice, you know, talking about the poverty that goes with that. And I'm glad you pressed her a lot on that issue with the calling Brandon Weber's death a murder and not a murder. I still say that this is Mayor Strickland's race to lose. Because he has the built-in advantage of incumbency, and Dr. Harrington and Tammy Sawyer are going to be fighting for some of the same voters, and it will take a monumental turnout for either one of them, I think, to overcome, and that's just the way I see it right now.
Reverend, you are a supporter of Tammy Sawyer, but
yes.
Where do you assess things right now?
I agree with Otis in that I think it's Jim's race to lose. I do think that your pressing her on that issue is going to go a little way to motivating her base, because they really feel strongly about the position that she took. And I think Tammy's going to wear Willie Harrington out. I think she's going to do much, much better than he is. And depending upon what Otis said about turnout, I think the race between Tammy and Jim is going to be a lot closer than people think.
I will say, though, that Willie Harrington looks good for his age. I'm here to tell you, I don't think he's aged a bit since I was covering him as a reporter when he was mayor the last time.
And he seemed very sharp, and he made a very strategic move the other day by having that press conference on the day of the filing deadline. He owned the news cycle that day, you know, he may come in third, you may be right, but he is as confident as I've ever seen him.
Well, the baggage there is that he had 20 years to do something with Tom Lee Park or whatever else is down there. And the other thing about it is, I'm just so intrigued by the fact that Pitt Hyde has funded the partnership and the Tom Lee Park and the festival and the newspaper that I read the article in. Man, his money's everywhere, isn't it?
Point taken. All right, we got to take a
break. Including education.
We'll wrap things up right after this.
Greater Memphis Chamber presents Memphians on the Move by Methodist Le Bonheur Healthcare. Please join me as I explore the impacts of those people and companies who are driving economic growth and empowering a stronger workforce in Memphis. Sunday at 11 a.m. on Local 24.
Hi, I'm Corey B. Trotz. At Nahan Saharovich and Trotz, we always look under the hood of each client's injury case. Car or truck wreck, we have the tools to look for: witnesses, videos, insurance, assets, and we know the law to help you recover more money. Call NST at 683-7000 and let us help you get back on the road.
I'm going to lawyer up with Team NST.
683-7000. When does an opportunity become a golden opportunity? When a forward-thinking safety system and peace of mind meet exceptional offers. Don't miss your golden opportunity to experience our most advanced safety technology now at the Lexus Golden Opportunity Sales Event.
Lease the 2019 ES350 for $369 a month for 36 months, and we'll make your first month's payment.
Experience amazing.
It's war on the roads. Bumps, scrapes, and ouch, wrecks.
You should be paid, including your pain and suffering. Call the Gold Firm.
Because around here, you matter.
Get gold. They're the team for me. Call 504-GOLD. Oh, there's something so real about living local. And I know without a doubt I'm not alone. And I'm loving living local. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Say I'm loving living local. Local 24 is always there for me. The Mid-South is where I love to be.
All right, my thanks to Otis and Reverend Ken for being here today. My thanks to you as well. If you'd like to weigh in on today's broadcast, rransom@localmemphis.com. We'll see you next time.